What's good, ladies and gents? Welcome back to MKO Boxing, aka MKO Pugilism, where we talk all things boxing. Remember to like, subscribe, hit the bell notification on YouTube, and also give me a follow on TikTok if you haven't done so already. So let's get into this one. So last night we had quite a snooze fest of a main event between Joshua Buatsi and Zach Parker. And this is one of them where, once again, the term robbery has been thrown around a lot, and also the term gift decision has been thrown around a lot. And I think, to be real with you, both of those are appropriate because last evening we had a fight in which you had Zach Parker doing the right thing tactically, sort of just sticking and moving and, outlanding and, in my view, sort of outscoring Joshua Buatsi just based on his activity. Joshua Buatsi was sort of following Zach Parker around the ring all night and, sort of coming in on the attack. But the problem with Joshua Buatsi was that as Barry Jones was sort of pointing out in the commentary, Joshua Buatsi was very one-paced. So it was always just the same pace every time. And he was just spending too much time sort of following Parker around and not really letting his hands go. It was almost as if he was it looked as if he was trying to counter Zach Parker on the front foot, but it was like by the time he sort of got there, he'd already eaten a couple of shots by Zach Parker, and then Zach Parker would cleverly sort of tie him up, or he'd duck and he'd move out the way, and he'd be gone. And then Joshua Buatsi would chase him down again with the same sort of tactics. There was no injection of pace. I mean, he was losing rounds. To be honest, it was one in my view, it was like Zach Parker kind of won it ugly. He did outbox Joshua Buatsi, but it wasn't sort of the most attractive to watch. So it wasn't the greatest, in terms of a spectacle, but I just thought Parker overall was just outlanding and outboxing Joshua Buatsi. And to be honest, it was more a reflection on how bad Joshua Buatsi's performance was than how good Zach Parker was, because I don't think there was anything particularly great that Parker did. But it was just obviously because Joshua Buatsi was so bad in just literally following him around and, sort of taking shots. There were occasions where Buatsi did land a few shots and he tried to hook away at Zach Parker, but Parker always, to his credit, seemed to be kind of that one step ahead. I suppose the negative you could say about Parker was that there were several occasions where he was dropping to the ground, where he fell over or whatever. He kept falling to the ground. He fell to the ground about 6 or 7 times in that fight. And I think, things like that are what sort of counted against him. And I think there was quite a bit of holding done by Zach Parker that obviously didn't, kind of made it a messy fight to watch. And I suppose those are the negative things from Parker, the holding and kind of the falling over a number of times. But I still think at the end of the day, if you're talking about punches thrown and landed, punches landed, Zach Parker most definitely outlanded Joshua Buatsi. And as much as I wasn't a fan of the sort of style of the approach of Zach Parker, his approach and his style and what he brought to the table was much more effective than what Buatsi was doing. What Buatsi was doing, just following him and looking for that perfect shot and overthinking things in a fight. None of really what Joshua Buatsi did worked. The only thing you can say in Joshua Buatsi's favor is that he came forward and he was trying to make a fight. He was trying to make something happen. He was the one sort of making the action and coming forward. And I think that's the only real thing you can say about it that's positive in his, as far as what he did. It was just, he was the man coming forward, trying to get stuck in. But the problem was his coming forward and what he was doing on the front foot was just completely ineffective because he just, for whatever reason, wouldn't let his hands go. Coming forward, coming forward, coming forward. And it's single shots, single jabs. And then when he gets right close, then he's trying to swing away, but he wasn't really setting up what he wanted to do properly. He needed to be busier. He needed to throw combinations, but it was just a lot of the time single shots, and by the time he lets a few shots go, he's too late because he's waited too long trying to counter. He needed to be a little bit more aggressive in there. He needed to be a bit more ruthless in there, and he needed to get to grips with the reality that, according to most people watching, and even his own corner, even Virgil Hunter was saying, look, you need to get going, you need to dig in, you need to throw punches now. And it was just one pace, he just wouldn't do it. So for me, you got to the 10th round, and that was it. I felt Zach Parker won it just based on outlanding Joshua Buatsi. As I say, I wasn't really that impressed with what Zach Parker did, but he was far more effective than Joshua Buatsi, and he was landing the punches, whereas Buatsi, it was few and far between. But it's one of them. It seems like it's one of them where the judges wrote the score. Well, or a couple of them wrote the scorecards before they even got to the arena. It's one of them, as Teddy Atlas would say. They wrote the scorecard before the fight, because it was quite poor. I mean, I was convinced Parker was going to get it, but when I heard the judge that scored it a draw, that's when I thought, we might have a bit of a dodgy decision here, and lo and behold, that's what happened. So yeah, it's controversial, very poor. I mean, some people are calling for Joshua Buatsi to get rid of Virgil Hunter as a trainer. I think, I don't know, I think it might be a good idea because as I suppose Barry Jones, again, I'll quote him, he said, you've got a thoughtful trainer and a thoughtful boxer. Both parties overthink things, so it's not a very good mix, because you've got a trainer that overthinks it, a fighter that overthinks things, and it's just not a good blend. And I think that's probably is the case, that they both overthink things, and Joshua Buatsi needs a trainer that's really gonna, sort of light a fire in his belly, and a trainer that's really gonna be, promoting offense, and not so much of the. You need a bit of thinking, but he needs to get aggressive. He needs to just grab fights by the scruff of the neck and box to his strengths. Whereas what he's doing now, he's just trying to be too careful and too perfect, and it's just not working. So he probably does need to switch his trainers, get someone who's going to be a bit more aggressive, a bit more like a Teddy Atlas, like a Freddie Roach, those guys that are about the offense. I think that's what he probably needs. As for Zach Parker, I suppose he can come again, but this is, it's quite a blow to him, because as so many others have said, had he won, you might not have had he might have been an attractive option had he won. But now that he lost that fight, I mean, I would never want to see him fight Joshua Buatsi again, just simply because of how poor that fight was. But I think, other fighters are not really going to want to fight him, because it's a difficult, awkward style to deal with. So I think he's going to be in a tough place now, because, a lot of fighters are probably not going to want to fight him now. Whereas with Joshua Buatsi, depending how Anthony Yard gets on, you could make that fight now that he's got that decision. And it's big time robbery, kind of gift decision. And it's ironic because at the post-fight interview, Joshua Buatsi mentioned that he got a call from someone in Saudi who said to him, you've got to keep the beard, because Adeola Depot was asking him, oh, you've kept your beard this time, that's unusual, normally you're clean shaven. And he goes, yeah, I got a call from Saudi and they told me keep the beard. So that kind of might make a lot of people think about corruption. I don't think you can know 100%, but hey, that's it's food for thought there. But anyway, Terrible fight and terrible decision in my view. Let me know what you thought about in the comments section below. Until next time, it's MK Boxing, over and out.